So our intention today is to give you some information about pool eligibility and the application and interview process, and give you some tips to help you represent yourself well in writing and in the interview. So as you consider your place in Greenville County Schools as an administrator, we want to wish you well. We want to tell you that whether you are coming from outside Greenville County or aspiring to school administration, school leadership from within Greenville County Schools, that you will be supported throughout the process. You will have an opportunity to view this information a little deeper as we will post this entire presentation and the recording this afternoon for you. But our school system is devoted to having the strongest school leaders supporting our students and our teachers in every classroom. And to that end, we work very hard to ensure that from the time you're a teacher, that we give you opportunities to lead, to be developed into a leader. And we work very hard in Greenville County through our pipeline processes to ensure that we support both your preparation, very strong selection processes, and that we support you from your beginnings in a role all the way through your development as a leader at the central office. So we encourage you as you consider Greenville County Schools leadership, or as you consider moving from the classroom in Greenville County into administrative leadership, that you know that you are embarking on a path continuing to grow. It is a journey of vision and of service, and we are very appreciative that you want to be a part of that. So to be considered for the AAAP pool, know that that pool is a list of persons who are approved for consideration to become an AA or an assistant principal, administrative assistant or assistant principal, and that only persons in the pool can be considered for position openings. You are eligible for the pool if you have the requisite certification for elementary or secondary principal. That includes certification in ed leadership, school administration, some state certificates, certification programs. Call it something different. In South Carolina, it's elementary or secondary principal now. All required documents must be submitted by the deadline, that's January 15, and you would be screened and selected by a district level interview team. So I'm moving a little farther forward than I intended, and Narissa Lewis is actually going to give us an opportunity to get to know you a little bit better for a moment. So I'm going to stop my share and let Narissa move ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am responsible for our check-in for today. So if you just give me 5 minutes, I think that we'll be able to learn some different things about each of you. So the word essential means something that is absolutely necessary or extremely important. And during this pandemic, we have heard the word essential often, as it has been used to describe a key worker or a critical worker who is considered essential because of the service that they provide. Educators have always gone above and beyond to engage their students and to serve their communities. And this has especially been true during the COVID pandemic. So as I was thinking about a check-in, I couldn't help but to think about the word essential. So for our check-in today, I'm going to ask each of you to focus on the word essential. I would like for you to think about the most essential app on your phone, book on your bookshelf, or appliance in your kitchen, and type that item in the chat box. So we're going to give everybody a couple of minutes to think about an essential app, a book on their bookshelf, or an appliance in their kitchen, and type that item in the chat box.
Hey,
Hey, how it on?
good. How are you?
So as I'm looking in the chat box, I think we have what we could call the educator's list of essential items that you must have during a pandemic. And so as I'm looking at some of those, I see a calendar, the Bible in the oven, Twitter, coffee maker, communication tools, Google Drive, and then a list of a variety of books. So you can continue to put those items in the chat box. I do want to say to each of you, thank you for the essential service that you provide to our students, for always going above and beyond to engage students and for helping them to reach their fullest potential. And now we have a complete list, the educator's list of essential items that you must have during a pandemic. I think at this time, Karen, I'm to go forward with introducing Dr. Royster and Dr. Turner. So during our check-in, we reflected on the word essential. And now we're going to transition to the word leadership. Leadership is the art of motivating a group of people to act toward achieving a common goal. In Greenville County Schools, we would not have been able to navigate through these unprecedented times without the strong leadership of our superintendent, Dr. Burke Royster, and our deputy superintendent, Dr. Scott Turner. Even during a pandemic, they have continued to keep students and employees at the center. We thank them for their leadership, but most importantly, for a vision where students feel inspired, supported, and prepared to achieve their educational endeavors during challenging times. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our superintendent of Greenville County Schools, Dr. Burke Royster, and our deputy superintendent, Dr. Scott Turner. Dr. Royster or Dr. Turner? I'm not sure who's going first.
Well, we're going to see if we have feedback, which we do.
Okay.
All right. Dr. Royster and I are sitting in the same room, so that's why we have a little feedback. We just finished up a meeting up here in the boardroom. Welcome. And we're 6 feet apart. You can't tell it, but we are socially distanced. Welcome, everyone, to our AAP pool talk with you guys. I was just reflecting back before we got on the Zoom. I was telling someone else in the room, I remember when I first became certified in administration and interviewing for assistant principal positions. Of course, that was 23 years ago, a long time, but a lot of things have changed, a lot of things have not changed. Many of you are getting into that position because you want to have a greater impact on students in your schools. And I will tell you, a lot of people, and I say this a lot of times across the state when I talk to school leaders, I've been an assistant principal, I've been a principal at 2 high schools, I've been a superintendent in a neighboring county for over 15 years. This is my 2nd year as deputy here in Greenville County. There is a teacher shortage, but there is also a leadership shortage in our state in terms of people who are willing and able to sacrifice their time and make that commitment to lead schools. And I want to first of all say I'm grateful that you're willing to step up into that position of leadership, that you want to take on that responsibility. A lot of people see the pressure that school leaders are under today, and they do not want to make that transition. And so I want to encourage you as you go through this process that you persevere, that you stick with it, that you may apply for many positions and not be selected for that position. You may not be the right fit for that school that they're looking for, but you need to continue your pursuit to find the right school, to find the right fit, and you will be successful. Lean on those around you and continue to learn. So with that said, I will turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Royster.
Thank you, Dr. Turner. Good afternoon. I still can't adjust to people can't say stuff back, or you can't really read everybody's expressions because I can only see like some number of you on the screen at one time. And And that includes people I know very well what their expressions are. I see them every day. I don't know any way to order this where we can only see those that are seeking to become an administrator. Dr. Turner, I think, gave you some good advice about, being a fit, and you may apply for a number of jobs and you may not get the first one or the 9th or the 12th one that you apply for, or you might get the very first one you apply for. It is a lot of times about fit. It's also about how you present yourself and how you prepared yourself. But before I talk a little bit about that, let me just say something about the importance of this to the system. The single greatest, most statistically significant factor in student achievement is a quality teacher in the classroom. You all know that, correct? And if you measure it, if you analytically measure it to the degrees of statistical significance, it has the greatest significance of all the factors that affect student achievement. Who knows what's the second most impactful factor? It's the quality of the principal in the school. It is the one over which we have direct control. Now, obviously, as a principal in a school, you have direct control over selecting the teachers when you have a vacancy or another opportunity to add a teacher. We have that responsibility with selecting principals, and we know the importance of how that impacts student attainment in the classroom, and how it also indirectly through their selection of teachers impacts teacher quality. The reason that most teachers leave teaching or leave a building has to do in regular times, and I can't speak of the COVID era, hopefully that'll soon be over with, but in regular times, it has to do with their perception of the quality of leadership and support they get in their school. And that comes directly from the principal and the assistant principals. So the importance of assistant principals and assistant administrators is twofold. One, it is part of that which retains and initially attracts teachers into the building, quality teachers, and helps to ensure that we keep those quality teachers and that we work to improve the ones that aren't meeting expectation. The other thing that it does from a system perspective is if you become part of the assistant principal force or the administrative assistant group, you then are the pool from which most of our principals come. About 75% of the principals that we employ in this district come from within the system. So making certain that we have a quality pool of assistant principals and AAs in the job directly affects the pool of candidates from which we select principals. So this is important at the school level. It's important at the system level. So even before you reach the level of principalship, having good quality individuals on the administrative team is extremely important at the district level. That's the reason we go through this process, and we create a pool from which principals work to select and bring forward to their supervisor, their appropriate assistant superintendent, I believe all of whom are on this Zoom meeting on one of these numerous screens. This is the group from which those principals choose their APs when they have an opening. And every year we have assistant principal openings. The people that help to select those that become a part of this pool are themselves experienced principals, either currently sitting principals, or they're people who have risen to some other level in the district. And that would be every assistant superintendent that's on this Zoom meeting. Could also be Dr. Turner or Dr. Cap or anyone else at the district level who's been a successful principal. Those are the people who are involved in helping to select those who make it into the pool. And you got to make it into the pool before the principals can consider you. From this point forward, everything that you say, that you do, and that you submit becomes a part of what we consider. Your opportunity to interact with these various people. What questions you might or might not ask today. What information you send in. The opportunities you have currently availed yourself of to get additional experience in areas of leadership outside your classroom. All of those things become part of your resume, so to speak, and become information upon which decisions are made as far as your admission to the pool and your movement from the pool as a potential applicant or a potential candidate for an actual position. So again, this entire process is important to us, it's important to the system, and it's very important to you. Now, I always like to try to ask when I do this, and again, a little easier to do this when you're sitting in front of us, but I always want to give an opportunity to the people who have presented themselves as candidates, potential candidates. You might decide that this is not for you. Let me just say, if you believe this is an escape from the classroom to a place with less stress or rigorous expectation, you should go ahead and log out now. Because that is not what this is. Is it different from the classroom? It is certainly different from the classroom. You need to make sure you've looked carefully at your reason for wanting to make that move. Why do you think you want to make that move? Is it for the right reason? There could be a multitude of right reasons, and there's some wrong reasons too. And that would be one of them. To believe that this is somehow an easier assignment or it's less stressful in the days of COVID or whatever you might be thinking about it, it is not those things. And you can ask anybody that's done that job, and everybody that's a part of this conversation has done the job to which you aspire. I've been both a middle school assistant principal and a high school assistant principal. And all these other people have had assistant principal experience. And until you get exposed to that kind of experience or have it, you don't always realize, looking at it from the outside in, exactly what that job entails. So as you think through that, make sure this is something you really are committed to wanting to do and to become. I don't know that it's harder than being a teacher. It's hard as being a teacher, but it is different. And the stress is different. And the expectations are different. So you need to think about those things. Talk with the assistant principals in your building now, or the principal. Talk to any of these people about some of those kinds of things. But what I want to give you an opportunity to do right now, before I exit out of this and let you get on with the business at hand, is there any question that one of you might have as to how we decide these things? What are your chances at getting to be a principal or assistant principal, principal ultimately, assistant principal first? What would you like to ask me while you have the opportunity to do so? And I'll let Karen manage that.
So why don't you plug into the chat if you want to ask Dr. Royster a question, and I will pull those up for him. I'm still looking at the menu for COVID. Dr. Royster, I have a young lady that would like to know why you chose to go into administration.
I thought we were interviewing them. I didn't think they were supposed to be interviewing me.
You just told them they need to
Oh,
choose
well, I
what
should,
they
clearly I shouldn't have done that. I know they're going to ask hard questions right at the outset. No, that's a good question. There are a couple of reasons. One, I guess it's a loftier, more philosophical reason. I truly believe that I could make a contribution, a positive impact on a larger number of students by going into administration than simply through teaching and coaching. I believe that. And I thought that given that opportunity, I could do that. And hopefully I've been able to do that over the years. The second, far more practical and personal reason, I don't like to be in the same place all day long. Now, that's not a real lofty reason for doing this, but I like the idea of being all over the building, being outside, being in the parking lot, being in all these places instead of confined into one room, doing one thing, although with different groups of students, all day long. The idea of that appealed to me, in addition to wanting to contribute on a greater level. What's the next one?
We've got several logistical questions that'll be responded to later in the meeting.
Okay.
I think that possibly several would like to hear from you. What is your ideal candidate for an administrator?
I assume specifically for an assistant principal. There would be some set of qualities that would be common. You know, you want someone that conducts themselves in an ethical manner. You want somebody that, to paraphrase a friend of mine that ran a pretty big construction company, what he wanted was somebody that would show up early, do a little more than they were asked to do, and be good to the people they work with and to the customers. Well, now you can translate that across just about any profession. That's a pretty good set of expectations to have for somebody. In fact, he would go on to say, I can teach them about the business. I just want them to have those personal attributes. So one thing you're going to look for are those personal attributes: integrity, willingness to do above and beyond minimal expectation, someone who sees that something needs to be done and does that. Those are some of the kind of qualities. Now, more specifically, in every situation I was in, I had the opportunity to have more than one assistant. So when there would be a vacancy, I'm going to look for somebody I don't already have. You know, if you got somebody that's really attentive to detail, you don't necessarily need another person that's real attentive to detail. If you don't have somebody that's real good at going around and making everybody feel good, if you're not the person that's going to go around and slap them on the back and tell them what a fine job they're doing, I'm probably not that person on an everyday basis. All right. So you need to have somebody that is that person. So you need to look for that. You need to try to balance out your administrative team with certain characteristics that the team either doesn't currently possess, or you've lost the person who did possess those. They retired, they got a promotion, or they went somewhere else. So it's as important to have a common group of personal skills. It's also important that you look for people that round out the team. Everybody's not good at everything. So what you hope, though, is that the team collectively is good at everything. What's the next one, Karen?
I'll give you one last one and then commit to the team responding to the others.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak, Dr. Royster, about the biggest challenge you see being an administrator as opposed to a teacher?
Well, the biggest challenge, and that doesn't matter whether you're an administrator here, whether you're me, Dr. Turner, or Karen, you or any of these other people, is seeing the big picture. seeing the big picture. Now, that's not the most immediate challenge for all of you. There may be a few of you in here that are already an assistant administrator in another district, because we sometimes have people like that. So it won't necessarily apply to you to the degree it would to the others. The majority of you in here, you've never been an assistant principal, you've never been an AA. My first job as an assistant principal, it was pretty early in my career. I taught and coached for 3 years. When I became an assistant principal, and I was the only assistant that was at a middle school, I was, in fact, the youngest person on the faculty. There was one other person my same age. Now, I came from the outside. All right, so there is an inherent challenge if you're the youngest person on that faculty and now you're the assistant principal. What you all might face would be some of you might be the youngest person on the faculty or one of the youngest on the faculty. Certainly, for most of you, you're going to be the least experienced administrator there, aren't you? Whether there's another one there or not. You are the least experienced administrator. If you happen to be promoted within the same school you're in, that's another different, unique set of challenges. You're no longer a colleague or co-worker. No matter how you view it, at the end of the day, you're other people's boss. You have leadership and management and supervisory responsibilities. That is an extremely difficult transition for a lot of people to make coming up from within the school that they taught in. In fact, we don't usually move people into those jobs from in the school that they're taught in. We do sometimes. But it is also difficult to come into that role from the outside, even if you had no pre-established relationships with the faculty. You're no longer a colleague in one respect. Not just for you, don't take this in the wrong way. You are no longer on the same level with the faculty, because again, you have some leadership, management, and supervisory responsibilities. Should you treat them as a colleague? Certainly, and with respect and courteously and all. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you got to be real careful with whom you're friends. And it's very difficult for you to assume a leadership, supervisory, management role. Be friends with people and also be willing and able to address their shortcomings in the manner you're required to do so. Can you sit down with your friend and say, I observed you doing these things. You know those things are not acceptable. I'm going to have to put something in writing to you. And if you were to continue to do those things, you could ultimately lose your job. Can you tell your friend that? Because you have an obligation to carry out your responsibilities. And that's very difficult to do with the folks you socialize with. There are people who can do that. But it is extremely challenging to have to do that. So you're looking at moving into a role where you do not have necessarily that same large supportive group around you like you did when you were the 10th grade English teacher. And in some cases, particularly at the elementary level, because those tend to be our smallest schools, there's not another assistant principal. You might be the one, you and the principal. And they have, to a degree, that same sort of challenge. You should have a very collegial and close relationship with your principal. But at the end of the day, that person's your supervisor, your boss, your leader. So it can, to a degree, be lonely, particularly if you're the only assistant principal, which is why it's important to develop a network of other people that are at the same level you are in the organization, that you can share things with and talk with them about things. But again, you really can't continue to have for almost all people, not everybody, but for almost everybody, you can't continue to have that as your group of friends. It will heighten the stress that you have. So that is extremely challenging to someone coming in the role as an assistant principal for the first time. Anything else, Karen?
No, Dr. Royster, I think of the assistant superintendents can be attentive to the chat. There are several logistical questions that we commit to respond to before the end of our session. Thank you very much for your support today and that of Dr. Turner.
Thank you all. And it's just great to see that we have this large number of people that are interested in these positions, because it's vital to the success of the district. So thank you all for being a part of this. Good luck with the process.
Thanks so much. So as we spoke before, and we talked about your consideration for the pool, we appreciate Dr. Royster speaking to that as well. The pool will close on January 15. So the timeline is presented here, and you might be interested to know that after the pool closes, it takes us a little bit to pull all those documents together and get those organized by level. But by February 4th, we will have had the district level paper screen. Applicants will be notified on the 3rd or the 4th. It's right there in that time frame. And between that time, February 16 to 26, we will do face-to-face interviews. Those interviews involve an assistant superintendent and 2 sitting principals in Greenville County and the interviewee. And you will get information, a phone call about all of that. And you don't need to bring anything with you, but that's the window for those interviews. By March 3rd, we will have notified all interviewees whether they are approved or not approved for the pool. Now, once you are in the pool, your name remains in the pool through actually until you either move into a position or you tell us you don't want to be in the pool anymore. But also, anytime there is an opening in Greenville County, because you are in the pool, you will get an automatic email letting you know that there is a vacancy and inviting you to apply. So the online application that you will complete when you go to the main district webpage and go to the little tab up top called Jobs, you will be able to go to the online applicant system, and the administrative position piece looks just like you see it there. Those are 3 of our principals, and you will follow all of the instructions that are there in order to apply. That online application system requires that you create a profile and upload documents. Those documents include your letter of interest, a current resume, a copy of your certificate. That certification's got to be in place by the start of next school year if it is currently in progress or pending. And if that is the case, you will want to note that in your resume so that that's clear. And then there will be a reference from your current principal that will be submitted online to online submission to an email address that the recommendation includes. So there is a required video for all new and external applicants to the pool. If you follow that link, it will take you to a Google form. You'll give some basic identifying information, and then you will upload a maximum 1-minute video of yourself in response to the prompt. Tell us about yourself and why you believe you're ready to be an assistant administrator. It's pretty simple and straightforward, but an opportunity for you to let us get to know you in just a bit. So your principal recommendation, you will provide a copy of the fillable recommendation form to your principal. It is at the link you see here. Your current principal is your primary reference. If you have worked for this principal less than 1 school year, your previous principal may submit the form as a second reference, but your current principal, no matter how long you have worked for them, is your primary reference. The principal will download, complete, and send that recommendation form to adminpool@greenville.k12.sc.us. So the principal will be rating you in that form in 5 areas. They will make an assessment of your qualities in the areas of high expectations and commitment to children, building relationships and influencing others, instructional leadership, your integrity and professionalism, and your stamina, initiative, and persistence. Those are the areas that go into that principal recommendation. And as always, they have an opportunity, and we encourage comments in each area or additional comments at the end of that recommendation. I mentioned screening and interview to you. Paper screen will be complete by February 3rd, and interviews will be complete by February 26th. I've spoken to you about the interview team. Your interview lasts approximately 30 minutes. And after that interview, each interviewee writes a response to a common prompt and submits that to the panel. So presenting yourself well. I do believe that Dr. David McDonald and Ms. Brenda Bird are going to talk you through these sections of our agenda.
Thank you, Karen. So one of the documents that we've prepared for you is an opportunity to really give you some better ways to help yourself be the most marketable candidate. As you've heard Dr. Royster say today, we are looking for the strongest possible assistant principal candidates that we can find. We want the very best. And so as part of our process, which is a multi-layer process, as you well see, there are numerous opportunities for us to really evaluate the quality of candidate that you are. And so one of the first pieces that we evaluate is, of course, your resume and your cover letter. We've given you some opportunities here by giving you some of the things that we look for, some of the items that we're really looking to make sure are in place as we are interviewing candidates. And so when we're evaluating interest in your resume, we are looking for experiences that you have had as a teacher to prepare you for this role, experiences maybe as an assistant principal that you've had in other districts to prepare you for this role, and really looking at how we can learn about you as a candidate. You want to sell yourself in a way that's going to make us want to interview you for one of our open positions. We always suggest that when you write that cover letter, that you look at it as 3 parts. First, who are you as the candidate? Tell us about you and your background. The second part is, what are those skills and training opportunities that you've had to uniquely qualify and prepare you for this role? And then finally, if you're given this opportunity, what are you going to bring to the table? What kinds of things are you going to do to make our district the exemplar district that we know we are and help us to continue to reach new heights? Your resume should include all of those positions that you've held in education. We want to know what kinds of things you've done. Maybe you've been a teacher at the same school. Maybe you've been a teacher at multiple schools, teaching different grade levels, different contents. Tell us who you are. Also, be sure that you provide us with the dates. Remember, we don't know you in many cases, so we don't know what you're bringing to us. So share with us the dates that you were involved in different positions. Tell us about your specialized trainings. What kinds of things do you have? As we're evaluating candidates, we're always looking for ways that we can place folks with special talents, special skills in some of our schools. And also, don't forget to make sure that your documents are visually appealing, that they are organized, that they are that things are spelled correctly, that we use proper grammar. Those are small things that really stand out when you're interviewing for one of these roles. We get lots of applicants, and so again, you want to make sure that you stand out, that everything you submit to us is visually appealing, and that it meets those requirements of telling us who you are, what prepared you, and what's going to make you our greatest candidate for this position. Ms. Bird, I believe, is going to talk to you a little bit about the next part.
All right. Thank you, David. Welcome to everyone. Good evening. Glad to have y'all with us. I'm Brenda Bird, Assistant Superintendent for Elementary, and I've served as an elementary and a middle school assistant principal. So brings back lots of memories talking to you all today. So in the document that Ms. Cap is sharing with you all, you'll be able to click on the link to see the notes from Dr. McDonald and myself on the writing portion and also doing well on an interview. There's probably many of the things that we're sharing that you're already familiar with. You've interviewed many, many times, probably for teaching positions and maybe other positions as well. So it's not really rocket science, but hopefully I can point out a couple of things that can help you do even better in an interview, just from our experience in interviewing a lot of candidates over the years. So be sure you prepare before the interview, do your homework, be able to talk about yourself and what makes your skill set stand apart from others. What are your strengths and how can they be used in the school setting? In order for you to serve as an assistant administrator? Why are you a good fit? Why should we choose you for an assistant principal position? On the day of the interview, as Ms. Cap said, we are going to do those face-to-face. So we'll have lots of social distancing going on. Feel free to, wear your mask as you're transitioning in and around our building as we're assisting you, getting you where you need to be. But if you feel comfortable during the interview, we'll have everybody spaced apart. You can take your mask off during the interview if you feel comfortable doing so. Dress professionally. You got one chance to make a good first impression. This Zoom is a chance for you to make a good first impression. You'll hear Dr. Royster say sometimes, you're always on an interview with us. Any interaction that we have with you all is an opportunity for us to get to know you. During the interview itself, greet the panel. We're not going to be shaking hands this year. That's going to be a little different. Make eye contact with everyone on your panel. Be attentive to the questions and any follow-up questions. Don't feel bad about asking for a question to be repeated if you don't feel like you really captured the essence of that question. Speak with confidence. Be professional, not too emotional. I've had a couple of people cry in interviews before, and that doesn't always look good. So just be careful about getting too emotional in an interview. Be brief and direct, but be sure you fully develop your answer. I think probably the biggest issue that I've seen in a lot of interviews is people kind of stay on that textbook level of an answer, and they don't go deeper and really help us to see what would your leadership look like? What have your experiences been that have developed you for this position? So be sure that if you start with a general answer, that you go deeper and share some specific experiences or a specific experience to answer that question so that we can better get to know you as a leader. If you don't know an answer, don't fake it. Usually that shows up. So be careful about that. Be honest about that and say that's an area that you would need to learn more and maybe how you'd go about learning more about that. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions at the end. Always come prepared with a question to help you learn more about the position, about what we're looking for in the position. And I encourage you to ask something more than when will we find out? Because Mrs. Cap has already given you that timeline. So nobody needs to ask a question about when are we going to find out the outcome of the interview. So really think about what will help you walk away from that interview, knowing more and understanding more about the position for which you are applying. Lots of other suggestions there. Mrs. Cap did say one district level leader like myself and the colleagues who are on the call today, some of our other district colleagues here at the central office, 2 principals. So just a 3-person team that will be interviewing you. You'll do the interview first, about 30 minutes. So pace yourself with your questions. And then you'll have the writing prompt afterwards, and the writing prompt is not timed. You'll sit at a laptop that we'll have. You'll have as much time as you need to develop that prompt and to type your response on the laptop and to submit that before you leave. All right, I think that's all the information I wanted to share. So Dr. Mitchell-Hofer is going to lead us through the Q&A portion.
Good evening, everyone. You all put several questions in the chat. So what I will do is lift questions from there first and call upon my colleagues in terms of who might want to answer those questions. So Natalie, what is the biggest difference between an AA and an AP? Who wants to take that one?
I can weigh in on the elementary level. I often say there's really not a whole lot of a difference in the job responsibilities. Unfortunately, the pay is different. An AA is teacher pay, and the AP is administrative pay. We'd love to be able to pay everyone the administrative pay, but that would really reduce the number of administrators that we would be able to have. So the AA position has enabled us to increase those administrative allocations in our elementary, middle, and high schools.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Angelica asked, I feel like I'm a couple of years out from being ready to apply. What should I be doing now to prepare myself to be ready? Who wants that one? Let's hear a little bit from middle, elementary, and high.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that, Dr. Mitchell-Hofer. You know, one thing I always recommend to folks who are considering these roles, which coincidentally was probably the hardest job I've had in education, is to get involved. Ask your principal for those tasks that you can work on. Think about what those signature opportunities are for you. In other words, if you see a need in your school, step in and volunteer to address that need. If you see that you have a large number of students who are struggling and need extra help after school, what kind of program can you put together? If you've got new teachers on board who may need that extra mentoring and support, how can you help plug some of those holes? So I always recommend get involved, put yourself out there, and really ask the principal for opportunities to engage in the school.
Anyone else want to add to that from a different level or keep it moving? All right. It's 5:21. We're going to keep moving. Datra asked, what qualities does your ideal candidate embody? Dr. Royster said a lot. He spoke a lot to that. Does anyone else have something to add?
I like to see someone who's a problem solver, someone who takes initiative and can identify that something could use improvement. And when they bring an issue or a problem to the principal, or to the school, that they already have maybe brainstormed some ideas about what could make that better, and a willingness to participate in that process.
Yeah, I would agree with what Ms. Bird said, and folks who are not afraid to get their hands dirty. We got to roll our sleeves up and get dirty sometimes in what we do as school administrators. None of us have arrived, and so we have to constantly remember that we have to work to get better and better and to be highly involved in what's happening in our school.
All right. Bree asked if an individual makes it past the initial pool and there are multiple principals who want to interview them, what are the next steps and how is it decided where they go if multiple offers are being given? I don't know if you meant multiple offers or multiple interviews. Can you clarify, Bree?
Yeah, I just meant, and I'm from out of district, so if I'm misunderstanding something, so if someone made it past the initial pool and then principal A from one school and principal B from another wanted to interview that person and hire that person, is it like a rock, paper, scissors thing, or how does it get decided who gets that particular candidate?
Any of my colleagues want to speak to that?
I believe we have in the past worked with principals and the candidate to look at best fit, best placement. Certainly, we don't want to say, sorry, this is where you're going, but we do try to work with our schools to make sure we understand why this candidate, and certainly looking at where they're going to be the best fit.
Good question. John Sierputowski, I think I said it right. What are some of the biggest challenges to being an administrator compared to being a teacher? I think Dr. Royster kind of answered that one too. If anyone wants to add anything to that. All right, we'll go to the next. Shayla asked if you applied before and you didn't make it to the pool, is there a way to get some feedback so that you can get a different outcome? Narissa?
If I'm understanding her question correctly, if you applied before, yes, at the end of your process, you were given an opportunity or should have been given an opportunity to submit an email and request feedback. So if you haven't done that, then we're always available to provide feedback. You just need to email Ms. Cap, I think, and then she will send that to the members of the team for feedback.
All right, Gaia, this is a really good question. There are a lot of books out there. Any that you would recommend for us to read? I was just messing with my books today. Integrity, that's a great one. Dare to Lead. Y'all chime in. We've all read them.
I love John Gordon, so you can't go wrong with any John Gordon text that's out there. And
Right.
get his weekly newsletter. He does a quick Monday newsletter each week. It's great.
David, you enjoy reading with your feet in the sand.
We only have a few minutes, so if you want a reading list, I'm happy to send you one. Just send me an email. I'll give you some great ideas.
All right, we'll keep that coming. And Ms. Cap has a list as well, so maybe at some point she can email that out to you all. What is the most important aspect I should focus on for the video that I submit? This is going to be the last question because Scott is going to close us out and we have 5 minutes left and I took 5 of his. I can say one thing that you need to definitely not do. Please do not read a script behind your computer. We can tell that that is what you're doing. So you need to be ready just to show us your best, not scripted. Just be you, relax. Don't sit on a couch. Dress professionally. Don't have a dog in the background. Have somebody babysit the child while you're taping. And most importantly, have someone look at the video before you submit it. Anybody else want to add anything to that? Did I hit everything?
Amen, Megan.
All right, Scott, I'm sorry I took some of your time.
Thank you, Megan. That's quite all right. Very good.
Excuse me, I'm a beg on out. I came home today early. I'm not feeling well. I wish you much success in your application process. Hopefully I'll be seeing most of you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Megan. And it's good to see so many people here today. And I hope a lot of you are high school folks as well. I will conclude today. Again, my name is Scott Reimer, Assistant Superintendent for High Schools.
Love you. I'll be right back.
By thanking you for taking the time to be here with us today. I was asked to kind of close on the question of what is best prepared you. And I think sometimes you all may think of that, and you may think
I'll
of
be back.
I think somebody needs to mute. Maybe Carla, if you could mute, that would be great. So what has best prepared you to be an assistant principal and a leader in our district? And I think a lot of times people think of the experiences that they've received in their school, and also the opportunities to do things as a teacher, maybe, or if you're currently assistant principal before you became an assistant principal, what opportunities you were given. I think sometimes one of the overlooked things is, who are your mentors? Who are the people that you worked for that you most admired? And sometimes it's not all of their qualities. You may take a bit of this person and a bit of that person and a bit of this other person, and that becomes the kind of leader that you want to be. So don't focus on just exclusively on the experiences for which you've received, but the people that you have worked for, both those that exhibited high quality leadership skills, but also those who weren't great leaders, so that you can learn how not to do some of those things. And I still to this day find myself thinking of leaders from whom I had a high amount of respect for, and those that I didn't, when I confront tough situations. So that would be my charge to you as we begin to wrap up. Ms. Cap, I don't know if you had any final words for the group, but I will turn it back over to you if you do.
Sort of laughing at Megan's admonition not to have your dog in the video with you, because mine just all of a sudden was in a fit in this room. I was trying to calm her down. Several of you have asked, can you submit additional material with your resume? You can upload to your profile additional documents if you choose. Please understand that for our paper screen and for our interview process, we are going to print for the team your cover letter, your resume, and the references that are submitted to us directly from your principal and a prior principal if you've been there under a year. In some cases, you are working in a school that is very large. Let's take a large high school where your principal should absolutely be a reference, but you may have a supervising assistant principal that interacts with you on a day-to-day basis much more closely, and I would consider that person a second reference for you. So we want to get to know you fully, but please understand that by the time this is all over with, we will be reviewing over 125 candidates for this list. And it's just going to be important that you put your best foot forward in the most efficient manner possible. So I appreciate that. If you have any kind of follow-up questions, you can email me. You can email Admin Pool. I check that account as well. And all of the material that we have discussed with you today, to include the video of this Zoom meeting, will be posted to the district's webpage. Go to that same job link, and under that administrative positions, all that information at the top is where that will sit. So very best wishes to you. It's exciting to see so many of you here today. When we do this face-to-face, we will have 75 or 80 people sign up, but they can't all get there. So I really hope that it did help today. We were certainly glad to see you, and glad that Dr. Royster and Dr. Turner were able to be with you. Anything else from Assistant Supes before we close? All right. Thank you all so much. Best wishes and good luck to you.